Hi, welcome to Costume Commentary. I'm Kait.
And I'm Brit, and today we're going to be reviewing the costumes from the 2015 live-action version of Cinderella. So, overall, we absolutely adore the costumes from this movie by Sandy Powell.
Sandy Powell is one of the greatest costumers alive today.
Yeah.
She's done things like Interview with a Vampire, Cinderella. She does a great job of putting countless details into outfits that really make a difference.
Yeah.
Sandy Powell was given the opportunity to choose which era Cinderella took place in. Sandy Powell decided not only was she going to do the 19th century, but she was also going to draw inspiration from the 1920s to the 1950s, especially with characters like Cate Blanchett's Wicked Stepmother.
And it adds a lot to the story, because Cinderella it's a fantasy fairy tale. There's no need, and it doesn't actually come from any one era. You can make it whatever you want, and that's kind of the whole point of the story.
She even at one point says it's the once upon a time period, which really gives you an idea that you're in a fantasy and it doesn't really matter exactly the historical accuracy.
Yeah.
She did a great job with historical accuracy too.
Yeah, there's definitely nods that let you know it's almost like each character sort of has their own time period, and the time period that they're from says a lot about them as a character, especially the Wicked Stepmother.
Cate Blanchett also knocked it completely out of the park.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I would hate to have her as a stepmother, but I would also love to be in her presence.
And it's also sort of a testament to something we haven't really touched on yet, which is the influence of actors on costume design. The actor playing the part has so much to do with the character as a whole. And there has to be some sort of influence there and push and pull between the costume designer's vision of the character, the director's vision of the character, and the actor's vision as well, because they're also artists. That part and those clothes were absolutely made for Cate Blanchett, and she just took it and ran with it, and it was amazing. So as far as character development and plot goes, Cinderella's palette and her shape remains pretty stagnant throughout the movie, but that's definitely on purpose. She doesn't go through a lot of character development, mostly because she doesn't need to. The other characters in the movie, they have these flaws and they have these things that they need to work through or get over or turmoil, where she obviously has turmoil, but as far as her personality, she's always been innocent and always been good, which is something the stepmother even says to her. So her palette, which is all pastels, blues, pinks, these really almost childlike shapes, stick with her through the whole movie, and it's everyone else who sort of changes around her. The ball scene where she walks in, and the highlight is obviously her in that amazing blue dress, but one thing we really wanted to touch on is there have got to be like 200 extras in that scene, and every single one of them is wearing a custom-made, probably tailored costume. And it's something that you might not notice, but for people who are paying attention, that is so much work and planning and thought that adds so many layers. Because if you had everyone in that ball scene just wearing similar gowns just to get it out of the way, it would have really detracted. And they also pull off this miracle of having all these different color palettes and all these different shades and shapes, and still she stands out.
Yes, it's so easy for a designer to go, okay, well, we're gonna have everybody else in this muted color palette and her in a bright, or everybody else in this bright and her in a muted. And it just, there's so many colors swirling around there, and every single dress is on its own beautiful, but yet hers is simple yet elegant.
The movie wouldn't be close to what it is without those costumes.
No.
I mean, Cinderella's ball gown dress alone took, what was it, 550 hours to make. 550 hours. That's a lot.
Yeah.
This dress deserves a section entirely its own. There was layers and layers and layers of tulle and petticoats and chiffon and those little butterflies, and somehow so much work went into it, and it's so simple that it becomes more noticed in this crowd of all these women who are like dripping in jewels.
Yeah.
And she just has this bit of glitter and this one shade of blue and some butterflies, and just the shape of it and also the styling of her hair and her makeup, she overtakes everybody else. And also just the size of that skirt. It's a simple shape, but that thing is huge.
The moment he lifts her up in the dance and you can just see the layers and layers of tulle and chiffon, it's just breathtaking.
Yeah. And my favorite thing about it is it's not just that blue. They go through so many shades. When he lifts her up, there's white petticoats, there's lavender tulle, there's bits of pink and that shade of blue that when they layer on top of each other make that perfect color that you see as she floats down the hallway. And I love that you really never actually see her in those shoes because that dress is like a giant frosting cupcake. It's totally gorgeous. And one of my favorite pieces of costuming from like movies recently, not just this movie, but any movie.
I would like to thank the cosplay community for doing this dress justice.
I love cosplay, especially with dresses like this, where you're never going to be able to wear that dress out. The only place that you're going to wear it is at cons. And it's also something that you could probably recreate something similar with a lot easier of a technique, but you have cosplayers who are so dedicated that they're looking at screenplay or screenshots and they're going piece by piece and recreating it almost exactly, and that dedication is something that I totally love. For the pivotal, most important in the movie, the gorgeous glass slipper. Those slippers were actually made by Swarovski.
So they were made to be worn, but they didn't end up being able to be worn.
Yeah.
They were too uncomfortable.
Yeah. So she actually has CGI shoes on, which is kind of awesome and cool, and is another really cool step that they're taking as far as costuming. You know, in movies in the future, there may be things that would not be even physically possible to be worn, and they're going to be able to achieve those effects with CGI, and I'm really excited for stuff like that to start happening.
Yes. Now, one of the most dynamic set of costumes in the movie is the Wicked Stepmother.
Yes.
The first time we see her, you don't even see her face. She walks in this emerald green gown, which really, color choice, perfect. And she's wearing this huge black hat that covers her face until she turns around and we just get this look at this woman who exudes power.
Yeah.
And she just takes over the screen, and you can tell from that moment, just in her look, that we don't know if she's necessarily bad yet, but she's imposing.
If you didn't know the Cinderella lore and you came into it fresh, you would still be like, whoa.
Who is she?
Yeah. Amazing.
All of her clothing has a very early Christian Dior feel to it.
She reminded me of like Rita Hayworth.
Yes.
And Joan Crawford and those classic black and white Hollywood film stars. Every picture of them is sort of like sultry and like maybe like they might be planning to kill you for your life insurance money. That's what she looks like.
Yeah, she's looking for the next up.
Yeah.
And a lot of the influences for her were very 1940s Hollywood starlet looks. At one point she wears a leopard print dressing robe, which really would not have existed in the 19th century.
No.
But she pulls it off like a mofo.
I didn't even realize how out of place it was until you pointed it out, because it just seems like something that she would have worn. It's something that is historically inaccurate but makes sense because it's a fantasy thing and it adds to her character.
Her character to me comes off as the woman who was the belle of the ball when she was Cinderella's age. And that the older she's gotten, even though she's remained beautiful, there are still girls who are younger and more beautiful. And she's kind of realizing she's losing her edge.
Yeah.
And so she's just going to tear down anybody who has threats to her.
Yeah. Even towards the end, when Cinderella asks her, you know, why do you treat me like this? That's literally her answer, because you're good.
Yep.
And it's almost like she can't handle someone else being good, so she tries to tear her down. And so they're such complete opposites with their costuming. Cinderella is, you know, childlike, kind of boisterous, almost fluffy. I mean, her ball gown dress is certainly fluffy. And then you have the stepmother who's in satin that's tight-fitting, and she has these like sultry silhouettes, they foil each other perfectly.
Sandy Powell did a great job developing these two characters that are so different, but they belong in this movie.
Yeah. So lastly, one of the other most important characters in the film as far as character development would be the prince. And his costume is really interesting. It's almost verbatim from the original cartoon.
Yes.
And just with some added detail to add depth. And it works so well. I mean, there's definitely parts of Cinderella that were taken from the original cartoon to kind of like as an homage, but the prince almost didn't need sprucing up, so they didn't really. His outfit at the ball is his outfit at the ball in the cartoon, just made a live action version, and it works so well.
The only thing they changed about the cartoon version of his outfit versus the live action version of his outfit is all of his outfits were dyed almost to match the color of his eyes and her dress. It's just another way that they show that they belong together. And I think the pivotal moment for him that shows his character development is when he first meets her. And she's convincing him to not kill the stag and saying, just because it is what done doesn't mean what it should be done. And it's that one where he's like, oh, well, kind of make me think about that.
Yeah.
And he immediately is like, you're right, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And his character development is quick, and it shows how good inspires good.
So for Kait's random fun fact for this episode,
the wedding dress actually caught on fire before it was even filmed.
Yikes.
Lily James actually stood too close to a heater when they were doing the shots of all the costumes before they started filming the movie, and the dress caught on fire. That dress took equal or more time than the ball
somewhere
gown?
between 400 and 500 hours to make, because all of the flowers are actually hand painted.
Yes. Yeah.
That sucks.
My least favorite costumes of the entirety of the movie are my least favorite because I think they're meant to be some of your least favorites, and that is the ball gowns that the ugly stepsisters wear.
I have the same least favorite.
Oh my gosh!
What's your favorite?
My favorite is the dress that the Wicked Stepmother gets introduced in.
Oh, I have a different favorite, but
Okay.
it's the stepmother also.
This is why we do this together.
Right? Okay. So our least favorite
is the dresses that the Wicked Stepsisters wear to the ball.
They're ugly on purpose, but God, are they ugly. Whew.
We were meant to hate it.
Yeah.
And it did such a great job at making us hate it.
And if I had to pick some other least favorites, they would probably be other things that the stepsisters wore, just because that's what they were like. Like, everything they do, you hate. So we have different favorite looks, but from the same character. My favorite look is the dress that the stepmother wears to the ball. And it's the green satin that looks like it's not even sewn. It looks like someone just took satin and melted it onto her and wrapped it around. And then she just was like, alright, I'm gonna make this look beautiful. And she totally does. It has this weird effect of kind of blinding her to everyone around her.
Yes.
Which is what she does as a person. She doesn't care about anyone else. Which one was your favorite?
My favorite is, like I've already talked about, the dress that we are first introduced to her in. I'm not even sure if it's the dress that makes it my favorite part, but it's that hat. She completely ignores everyone around her, again, like the blinders. And she walks right past everybody and walks in the house and just sweeps her head around. Yes, this'll do.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is one of the greatest costuming choices in the film, because it also gives her a grand reveal that shows that she is just this like theatrical kind of person.
Yeah.
And sets up the tone for the things that she does throughout the entire film. Thank you for joining us for this video, and make sure to like it if you liked the video, and make sure to comment down below if there's any movie, video game, TV show you'd like us to review.
So this coming Wednesday, we're actually going to be doing our first tutorial. We're going to be showing you how to make a duct tape body form to help with all of your cosplay needs. So make sure to click subscribe if you want to be notified about that as soon as it comes out. Thanks for watching.
Yay! These dress forms are great for trying on cosplay looks, so that way you can see how it looks on your body without actually having to break your neck to look at your back in the mirror.
The cons, if you're a pattern maker who works with drafting or draping or anything like that, these